Tell us, what did you do before the war?
I worked as a security guard on a rotational basis.
And how did you end up at the war?
I signed a contract with Russia's Ministry of Defense.
Why did you decide to sign the contract? Tell us the story.
I made a bet with a friend on whether they would accept me under contract or not, and they did.
And if they hadn't accepted you, what would you have won in the bet?
A bottle of cognac.
Because of a drunken bet over a bottle of cognac, Stanislav lost both of his hands along with parts of his feet. The bet, made while drunk, was over whether the Russian army would accept him into service. Not only did they accept him, they sent him to the front lines with close to no training.
I'm from the Volgograd region. What did I do before the war? Well, I worked. I worked until the coronavirus pandemic. After COVID, I became unemployed.
What was your job? What did you do for work?
I worked at a factory that made drilling rigs.
I worked in the city of Oryol as a welder. I did that job for the last 3 years. In late October 2022, was mobilized. I received a draft notice from the military enlistment office and I was called up into the army.
Hundreds of Russian soldiers who suffered severe injuries in the war are currently in Ukrainian captivity.
Unfortunately, many of them have lost limbs, arms, legs, and some don't even have bones left. Their arms are held together like this, by Ilizarov frames. On my last visit, one showed me his arm. It was like a rag. Some POWs have lost their eyesight. I sent a care package to one of them, and his family asked me to include an eye bandage for him.
I was stationed in the Avdiivka direction, serving as a private. We did 2 combat missions, and that was it. Then we were captured. 2 of us were wounded. The wounded guy was killed, the one we were carrying. Then we were captured, and the wounded were taken away.
How were you wounded?
Well, I got shot. First in the arm. I was wounded in the side and in the arm. And this, my feet. I got frostbite on my left foot. I froze my foot off.
We were taken to Berdyansk. At some point, we were trained briefly. Then, we were sent on a combat mission. From February 24 to February 29, I was out on that mission. During that time, I got frostbite and was wounded by shrapnel in the arm. 2 fingers on my hand don't work too well, and a third stopped working completely after I got hit. My arm, after the shrapnel got in, 2 of my fingers stopped working. I made the independent decision to go out to my position and to take someone else out with me. So, 2 of us went out without any weapons or equipment. We didn't have anything on us. I was hoping we could make it back to our position, but we ended up in the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine and we were captured.
I was in charge of a group of 8, and there were 2 other groups of the same size from my company. The commanders gave the order and we were on our way. We were tasked with holding the position captured by the assault units, but the Ukrainians simply didn't let us do it. There were too many drones, including the so-called kamikaze ones, ordinary ones too. We were hit with everything. Grenades, mortars. It was rough out there. I was hit in the arm, and I think it was shrapnel because the entry wound in my forearm, right in the middle of it, I don't know, it was the size of a walnut. It exited and my arm was completely torn apart, shattered bones. The guys who were still intact applied a tourniquet to my arm. They said they threw pieces of bone out of the wound because the arm was, well, what happened next? We had no weapons or ammo. Ukrainian soldiers started shouting, "Surrender, you'll stay alive." But we had nothing left. The guys started coming out and surrendering, well, those who could. I stayed behind with another soldier from the 7th Company. At that point, I was completely out of it. The commander of the Ukrainian group we encountered. He bandaged my wound, applied a tourniquet. He told me that I would most likely lose my arm, that there was nothing to save, but that I would survive. And that's exactly what happened.
If you hadn't left your position and been captured, and if no one had helped you, what would have happened?
Well, obviously we would have died. Any reasonable person understands that it would have been death.
According to the Geneva Convention, severely injured soldiers don't have to wait for an exchange. There is another mechanism to get them home: repatriation. Warring parties are required to create mixed medical commissions made up of 3 doctors, 2 from neutral countries appointed by the International Committee of the Red Cross, and a 3rd from the country holding the POWs, the detaining power. The doctors from neutral countries must be approved by both warring sides. The commission visits all prisoners of war, assesses their condition, and determines if they qualify for repatriation. If approved, the prisoner has to be sent home within 3 months. However, this process is not functioning between Russia and Ukraine.
A year ago, on August 10, 2023, Ukraine, together with the International Committee of the Red Cross, established a mixed medical commission that included 2 doctors from Switzerland and 1 from Ukraine. On the Ukrainian side, this commission is ready to work. The only obstacle now is that over the past year, the Russian side has not been able to create a similar medical commission. As a result, the repatriation process cannot begin because it requires the participation of both sides.
Why isn't Russia taking you back?
Well, first, I think the time hasn't come yet. Some lists are being made, and people are still being returned home. I've seen it with my own eyes. 3 exchanges have already taken place. 1 person was exchanged. Severely wounded, he had no leg. So, how the lists are made, how the exchange happens, I don't have the information and I can't say. Maybe the time will come for my exchange. Maybe, maybe not.
The insider sent a request to Russia's Human Rights Commissioner, Tatiana Moscova, asking a simple question: when will Russia fulfill the requirements of the Geneva Convention, create a mixed medical commission, and bring the POWs home? The commissioner's press service declined to comment.
You know, I've heard that because I'm no longer combat ready. Russia prioritizes returning combat-capable soldiers. That's the information I've received. So, since I'm disabled and not ready to fight, I'll be exchanged last.
Russia currently isn't taking back severely wounded soldiers. They're only taking prisoners of war who have their arms and legs intact and can be sent back to fight. Unfortunately, those who are disabled and can no longer fight are not being taken back. And there are a lot of them.
We believe that Russia doesn't want to allow independent representatives to access its POW detention sites because they would witness war crimes and violations of the Third Geneva Convention, which we know are happening on Russian territory and in the occupied territories. Moreover, it's obvious that the Russian Federation does not care about the lives and health of its own citizens who are held captive in Ukraine. To them, the lives and well-being of these people do not matter.
Для них життя і здоров'я цих людей не важливі, вочевидь.
Do your relatives know that you've lost your arm?
Yes, I told my wife. I've been in touch. They know. Yesterday, I was able to talk to them. She's waiting for me. She's very worried. She's been running around to every authority to bring me back as soon as possible. She's doing everything she can. She's trying.
What would you like to do when you return?
Well, if I can, I'd like to go back to work as a security guard again and go fishing.
What's the most interesting or biggest catch you've had?
Sterlet Siberian sturgeon. These are illegal fish. They're on the red list of threatened species.
So that makes you a poacher?
Well, it appears so.
I hope they're still waiting for me. I really hope my partner's waiting for me, and I know my sister is. I know my kids are waiting for me too. That gives me the motivation to return to Russia. I have 2 daughters and a son. I'm not sure about the son. I'll have to do a DNA test when I return, but I definitely have 2 daughters. My eldest daughter is 14 and the younger one is 13.
One of the cases that really stuck with me is that of Alexei Bakunov, a young man, 24 years old now. He said he foolishly signed the contract when his wife was pregnant with their second child. And he went to war. At the front line, he got frostbite on both feet and was taken captive, where they had to amputate. He saw his son for the first time only through a photograph we brought him during our visit. His reaction is something I'll never forget. That laughter, it was a laugh with so much pain. I can't even describe it.
Do you want to go home?
Yes, of course.
Who's waiting for you at home?
My wife, my children. My wife, kids, cousins, relatives. Yes, while being here in captivity, I worry not so much about myself, but about my loved ones.
And now, looking back, I think it wasn't worth it. That bet.
Why do you think it wasn't worth it?
I'm left without hands. I'm disabled.
If you had known how it would all end then, when you received the draft notice, what would you have done?
You know, since 2022, when I went to war, I've been home on leave twice. And I met people I know who got draft notices and simply didn't go, and they're still at home. So, like it or not, these thoughts come to mind.
The Insider's journalists continue their work despite pressure from Russian authorities. You can support them by liking this video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to our channel. If you'd like to further support their efforts, consider making a donation by clicking the link in the description below.